The moment I knew my career was over wasn't when they moved my parking spot to the back lot. It wasn't when my name disappeared from the company directory. No, it was at 6:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning when I walked into my office, same time I'd arrived for 18 years and found a 27-year-old kid sitting behind my desk, feet up on my leather chair, scrolling through my computer files. He looked up, didn't even blink. "Oh, hey," he said, not bothering to take his feet down. "Didn't anyone tell you? This is the Innovation Lab now. We're pivoting the space." Justin Bennett, CEO's son, MBA from Northwestern with 0 real-world experience, 50,000 LinkedIn followers where he posted about disrupting manufacturing, and apparently, my replacement. My name's Hudson Clark. I'm 49 years old, Army Corps of Engineers veteran, 18 years at Bennett Automotive. Solutions. We design safety systems for major car manufacturers. 1. 8 billion in annual revenue, or we did before things went sideways. "Where's my stuff?" I asked. He gestured vaguely toward the door. "Facilities moved it. Basement archive room, I think. We needed the executive floor space for creative collaboration." I stared at him. He'd already redecorated. My framed patents gone. The photo of my engineering unit in Afghanistan gone. My Army Corps shadow box gone, replaced with motivational posters that said things like "fail fast, learn faster," and a neon sign that blinked "disrupt mode." "Right," I said. "The basement." "Oh, and Hudson." He smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Dad wants to see you at 9. Something about role realignment." Dad. Roy Bennett, our CEO, currently experiencing what I can only describe as a corporate midlife crisis. I didn't argue, just turned and walked to the elevator. The ride down felt longer than usual, like I was descending into some corporate purgatory I never knew existed. Found my stuff 10 minutes later in the basement archive room. Flickering fluorescent lights and concrete floors. My desk items thrown into cardboard boxes like they were clearing out a dead man's office. My project files stacked haphazardly against a wall. 18 years of engineering work treated like old newspapers. But the worst part? My Army Corps shadow box, the one with my service ribbons, unit patch and bronze star, was sitting in a dumpster outside the building. Just sitting there, on top of pizza boxes and coffee cups, like 18 years of service, was yesterday's garbage. I stood there for a moment, looking at that shadow box. The bronze star I earned in Kandahar when our unit built a bridge under fire. The Corps of Engineers patch I wore with pride for 8 years before joining Bennett Automotive. All of it tossed out like trash because some kid needed space for his innovation lab. I picked it up, dusted off the pizza grease, carried it back inside. That's when I stopped being angry and started getting precise. Here's what you need to understand about how I got here. Last March, 8 months ago, Roy had what you might call a situation. Some questionable contracts with overseas suppliers got flagged by federal regulators. Nothing criminal, but enough to make the board nervous. They needed someone clean, someone with security clearance, to hold things steady while Roy's lawyers sorted out the mess. They made me acting Chief Technology Officer that March. Emergency board vote, effective immediately. There was paperwork, official memos, notifications to all the regulatory agencies. My title got updated on every federal filing with the Department of Transportation and National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Primary Technical Officer, they called it. The guy responsible for making sure our safety systems actually kept people alive. Temporary, they said, just until things settled down. Roy was grateful back then, shook my hand, said the company needed someone with my background to guide them through the storm. Someone the feds trusted. Someone who understood that, in the automotive safety business, cutting corners gets people killed. Then in April, right after my appointment got approved by the regulators, Roy brought in Justin, said we needed to modernize our approach and speak to younger engineers. He was supposed to handle digital transformation and social media outreach, make the company more appealing to millennial talent. That lasted about 2 weeks. By May, Justin was sitting in patent review meetings, asking questions that showed he didn't understand the basics of automotive safety systems. By June, he was giving opinions on manufacturing processes he'd never seen. By July, he had a corner office and a title that hadn't existed before, Chief Innovation Officer. By October, he had my office, and I was in a basement with boxes of safety compliance files from 2006. Nobody had officially changed my title. Nobody had revoked my acting CTO designation. They just moved me, quietly displaced me like I'd become part of the furniture they didn't want anymore, but couldn't quite throw away. The basement office was a joke. A folding table that wobbled when you typed, a metal chair that squeaked every time you moved, and a corner of the archive room that smelled like old paper and forgotten dreams. My computer monitor sat on a cardboard box because they hadn't even bothered to bring down a proper desk, but I set up shop anyway, plugged in my laptop, arranged my files the way the army taught me. You learn certain things in the service. One of them is that when someone's trying to push you out, you don't fight back immediately. You observe, you document, you wait for them to make the mistake they don't know they're making. And I knew Justin would make mistakes. Hell, he was already making them. I just had to be patient enough to document every single one. At 9 a.m., I went upstairs to Roy's office. His assistant waved me in without looking up from her phone, like I was just another appointment on a busy Tuesday morning. Roy was at his desk, typing on his laptop, wearing a hoodie that probably cost more than most people's car payments. He'd started dressing like a tech founder lately, said it made him more approachable to the younger employees. Hudson, hey. He gestured to the chair across from him without looking up. Thanks for being flexible about the office situation. Flexible, I repeated. Yeah, Justin needs space for his innovation initiatives. You understand. And honestly, at this stage in your career, you're more valuable as institutional memory than active leadership. You know, like a consulting role, advisory. Institutional memory, that's corporate speak for someone you're trying to make disappear without actually firing them. Someone whose knowledge you need, but whose presence reminds everyone how things used to work. What about the acting CTO designation? I asked. He waved his hand like he was shooing away a fly. We'll figure that out after the government contracts get renewed. Right now, we need energy, fresh thinking. Justin brings energy. You bring stability. Different skill sets for different phases of growth. The federal filings still list me as primary technical officer. Details, Hudson. Legal will clean that up when they have time. Don't worry about it. But I was worrying about it because Roy clearly wasn't. He was too busy playing startup CEO to notice that federal regulators don't consider job titles to be details you clean up later. They consider them legal designations with actual consequences. I walked out of his office and went back to my basement corner. Sat down at that wobbly folding table, opened a new document on my laptop, and started a file I titled Timeline and Documentation. First entry, April 15th, 2024, Justin Bennett, hired as Digital Transformation Specialist. No engineering license, no federal security clearance, no CTO approval for technical decisions. Salary, $180,000 plus signing bonus. I saved it to 3 different drives: cloud backup, external hard drive, and a USB stick I kept in my desk drawer. The Army taught me redundancy. Always have backup systems for anything that matters. Then I got back to work. The kind of work Roy thought didn't matter anymore. The kind of work that keeps a manufacturing firm from collapsing under regulatory scrutiny. Justin's first major presentation happened 2 weeks after he took my office. He called it an all-hands meeting, mandatory attendance for all engineering staff. I sat in the back of the conference room with my coffee, watching him set up his equipment like he was about to deliver a TED Talk. He had a MacBook covered in startup stickers, a wireless presentation clicker, and enough confidence to fill a football stadium. The lights dimmed. His presentation appeared on the screen. Dynamic Manufacturing Framework, AI-powered safety systems for the modern era. I almost choked on my coffee. The subtitle read, Revolutionary Approaches to Automotive Innovation. He clicked to the first slide. A stock photo of a guy in a hard hat looking thoughtfully at blueprints, like he was contemplating the future of manufacturing. Very inspiring, very generic. Traditional safety protocols are dead, Justin announced, pacing across the front of the room like a motivational speaker. We've been operating with outdated frameworks that don't account for real-time manufacturing dynamics and consumer expectations. So I developed something new, something that will position Bennett Automotive as the industry leader in next-generation safety systems. The next slide showed a flowchart, my flowchart, the adaptive safety protocol I developed in 2019, when we had that massive recall crisis and everyone was scrambling to figure out why our brake systems were failing in cold weather, the same system that had saved the company $200 million in penalties and kept us from losing our federal contracts. He'd taken my 73-page technical manual, the one I'd spent 8 months writing and testing, copied the key diagrams, slapped them into 8 PowerPoint slides with different colors, and added buzzwords like predictive analytics, machine learning integration, and IoT sensor networks. This framework, he continued, gesturing at my own work, uses what I call generational intuition combined with algorithmic forecasting to predict safety failures before they happen. It's about moving from reactive problem-solving to proactive system optimization. Generational intuition, that's what he called 18 years of experience and pattern recognition. The ability to look at a manufacturing line and know, just by the sound of the machinery, when something was about to go wrong. One of the senior engineers, Pete Morrison, leaned forward. "This is brilliant, Justin. Why didn't we think of this approach before?" "We did think of it. In 2019, I developed it." Pete knew that because he'd been there when we implemented it, when we ran the tests, when we proved it could prevent the kind of catastrophic failures that kill people and destroy companies. But nobody said anything. They just nodded and took notes while Justin explained my own system back to me, using terminology he clearly didn't understand. "The beauty of this approach," Justin said, clicking to another slide, "is that it scales across multiple product lines and integrates seamlessly with our existing infrastructure. We're talking about a complete paradigm shift in how we think about automotive safety." After the meeting, engineers came up to congratulate him, shook his hand, told him how impressed they were with his innovative thinking. I sat there watching, feeling like I was in some alternate reality where theft was being celebrated as creativity. I went back to my basement corner and added another entry to my documentation file. October 20th, 2024. Justin Bennett presents proprietary safety framework to engineering staff. Framework is actually HC Adaptive Protocol from 2019, repackaged without attribution or understanding of underlying methodology. Presentation includes direct copies of original diagrams and processes. No mention of previous development or testing phases. I attached screenshots of his presentation slides next to photos of my original documentation, page by page, diagram by diagram, showing exactly what he'd stolen and how he'd rebranded it. The Detroit Free Press ran a piece about him 3 days later. Rising star in automotive brings fresh thinking to traditional firm. The article quoted Justin extensively about his revolutionary approach to safety, systems, and his vision for the future of automotive manufacturing. I printed it out, highlighted the relevant sections, added it to my growing file. That's when the really dangerous stuff started. Justin decided we needed to modernize our manufacturing approach with something he called agile production pods. Decentralized manufacturing, he explained to anyone who would listen. flexible supply chains, just-in-time everything, worker teams that could pivot quickly between different product lines without traditional oversight. He pitched it in a senior staff meeting. I wasn't invited, but Eddie Walsh told me about it afterward. Eddie was 29, one of our junior engineers, smart kid with a mechanical engineering degree from Michigan State. He actually understood how automotive systems worked, unlike some people. Eddie found me in the basement that afternoon, looking more worried than I'd ever seen him. "Hudson, he wants to reorganize the entire production floor," Eddie said quietly, glancing around like he was worried someone might overhear. "Real manufacturing lines with real workers and real safety protocols. He's talking about eliminating quality control checkpoints because they slow down innovation and create bottlenecks in the creative process." I looked up from my laptop. Did he run this by the safety committee? He said safety committees are where good ideas go to die. Eddie shook his head. Those were his exact words. Said we need to trust workers to self-regulate and focus on outcome-based quality metrics instead of process-based compliance theater. Process-based compliance theater, that's what he called the federal safety regulations that keep people from dying in car crashes. I closed my laptop and looked at Eddie. "Are you documenting these meetings?" "Should I be?" "Yeah, you should be. Just notes, dates, times, who said what. Keep them somewhere safe, not on the company server." He nodded slowly. "Hudson, what's happening here? I mean, really happening?" "Justin's building a house of cards," I said. "And Roy's too busy playing tech CEO to notice that the foundation is crumbling. Just keep your head down, do good work, and document everything." The agile production pitch didn't go through, but only because one of the department heads asked how we'd explain manufacturing defects to federal safety inspectors when there were no quality control checkpoints to reference. Justin said we'd educate the regulators on modern production paradigms and help them understand that innovation requires regulatory flexibility. That's when the department head laughed. Not with him, at him. But Roy was right there backing up his son, saying we needed to think bigger and embrace disruption instead of hiding behind outdated compliance requirements. Next came the virtual reality training center. Justin convinced Roy to spend $150,000 on what he called an immersive safety education space. Said we needed to train workers in virtual environments because that's where manufacturing was heading. The future of industrial education, he called it. They built it on the 12th floor. Fancy VR headsets, motion sensors, haptic feedback systems, the whole setup. Justin posted a video tour on LinkedIn that got 40,000 views and 2,000 likes. Comments full of people praising his innovative approach to worker training. The training center sat empty for 4 months. Turns out our workers, mostly in their 40s and 50s, guys who'd been building automotive parts for decades, preferred learning on actual equipment where they could touch real parts and understand actual problems, where muscle memory meant something and experience mattered. But the worst part wasn't the wasted money or the stupid ideas. It was what Justin started doing in June, about 2 months after he got comfortable in his role and started believing his own hype. He started signing things. Patent applications, manufacturing contracts, safety compliance forms, supplier agreements, all with his signature, his fancy new title, his assumed authority. I first noticed it when I was reviewing routine compliance reports in August. There was his signature on a federal safety certification form, right there in black ink, like he had every right to be making decisions about automotive safety systems. Then I saw another one, then another. By September, he was signing everything that crossed his desk: equipment authorizations, supplier contracts, regulatory submissions, even some agreements with government safety inspectors. I pulled one up on my screen and stared at it for a long time. Justin Bennett, Chief Innovation Officer, authorized to execute federal safety certifications on behalf of Bennett Automotive Solutions, except He wasn't authorized to execute anything, not according to the Department of Transportation, not according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, not according to any of the regulatory agencies that actually mattered. I called Pete Morrison. We'd served together in the Army Corps, back when we were both young and stupid enough to think building bridges in Afghanistan was a good career move. Now Pete was with the DOT, working compliance enforcement for automotive manufacturers. "Pete," I said when he picked up. Hypothetical question. "Jesus, Hudson, I hate when you start conversations like that. If someone's signing federal safety certifications without being a registered principal, what happens?" Long silence on the line. "Then, how many certifications are we talking about? Hypothetically. Maybe 40 or 50 documents over 4 months, major stuff, safety systems, manufacturing processes, supplier agreements. Hudson, that's not hypothetical territory anymore. That's federal violation. Territory, criminal charges, territory. Who's signing these things?" "I'll let you know if it becomes non-hypothetical," I said, and hung up. I went back to my documentation file and started a new section. Unauthorized signatures, June to October 2024. Every single document Justin had signed since he started feeling confident enough to put his name on federal paperwork. It took me 3 days to catalog everything. 47 separate documents. When I cross-referenced each one against DOT requirements for authorized principals, the picture got ugly fast. 90-day federal designation process, security clearance verification, regulatory approval from multiple agencies. Justin had completed exactly none of these requirements. 47 documents, every certification he'd approved, every contract he'd authorized, every safety agreement he'd executed was technically invalid. And we were still in the middle of renewing $400 million in government contracts. The DOT was reviewing everything we'd submitted over the past year. Every signature, every authorization, every single officer designation had to be perfect. My name was still on all the official paperwork as acting CTO, primary technical officer, the one with actual federal authority. Justin was signing documents like he owned the place, but legally he was just an employee with a fancy title and zero regulatory standing. I saved everything, backed it up to multiple locations, made sure I had copies in 3 different places. Then I waited, because I knew something Roy and Justin didn't know. Something they'd forgotten in their rush to be innovative and disruptive and modern. The federal government doesn't care about your LinkedIn followers when you're breaking their laws. The breaking point came on a Wednesday afternoon in late October. I was in my basement corner, reviewing contract compliance documents for the 3rd time that week when my phone buzzed with a text message. Linda Rodriguez. The name made my stomach drop. Linda's 62 years old, runs a trucking company in West Texas, tough as nails and sharp as broken glass. She'd been our client for 12 years, buying safety systems for her fleet of long-haul trucks. In all that time, through economic downturns and supply chain disasters and regulatory changes, I'd never seen Linda panic about anything. She was the kind of customer who paid her bills on time and never complained unless something was seriously wrong. The message was short. "Hudson, call me now." I called immediately. "What the hell is this?" she said instead of hello. No pleasantries with Linda. Never had been. "What's what?" "I just got a proposal from your new hotshot. Something called Revolutionary Fleet Integration System with Predictive Maintenance Protocols. 30 pages of complete nonsense that I can't make heads or tails of. And at the bottom, there's an authorization to move forward with implementation. Already signed." My blood went cold. Signed by who? Justin Bennett, Chief Innovation Officer, says he's authorized to execute strategic system modifications for existing clients. Hudson, is this real? Because if your company is trying to scam me with some kind of high-tech snake oil, I'm pulling my contract today and telling every trucker I know to avoid Bennett Automotive like the plague. "Send it to me," I said. "Right now. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. Just send me that proposal. The PDF came through my email 30 seconds later. I opened it with shaking hands. It was worse than I'd imagined. Justin had created a complete proposal to integrate Linda's entire trucking fleet with some kind of AI-powered predictive maintenance system. IoT sensors on every truck, real-time data analysis, automated maintenance scheduling, the whole 9 yards. It would have required installing untested software on trucks carrying hazardous materials across state lines. It would have created massive liability issues if the system failed and caused accidents. It could have violated federal trucking regulations and put Linda's company out of business. And there, at the bottom of page 30, was Justin's signature on a line that said, "Authorized for implementation." He'd signed it like he had the authority to restructure a client's entire operation. I stared at that signature for what felt like an hour but was probably only a few minutes. This wasn't about office politics anymore. This wasn't about my wounded pride or 18 years of being taken for granted. This was about Justin doing real damage to real people who trusted us. "Linda," I said finally, "give me 24 hours. Don't sign anything, don't implement anything, don't even respond to that proposal yet. 24 hours, Hudson. Then I'm pulling my contract and finding a supplier who knows what they're doing." She hung up. I sat there in that basement, surrounded by boxes of old files and the smell of forgotten paperwork, and something fundamental shifted inside me. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. I was precise. I was back in Afghanistan, looking at a bridge that had to be built perfectly or people would die. I opened my secure documentation folder and started going through everything I'd collected over the past 7 months. The March board memo appointing me acting CTO, the federal filings listing me as primary technical officer, the DOT designations showing I was still the authorized principal on all government contracts, every document Justin had signed without authority, every unauthorized certification, every invalid contract, every federal regulation he'd violated. 47 documents spanning 4 months, over 60 distinct regulatory violations, all during an active federal contract review period when every signature had to be perfect, and now this proposal to Linda, signed like he had authority to restructure a client's entire business operation. I picked up my phone and called Pete back. "I need to know something," I said when he answered. "If someone's been signing unauthorized federal documents during an active contract review, and those documents create liability for clients, what exactly happens?" "Hudson, we've had this conversation before. That's not hypothetical territory anymore. That's criminal violation territory. Federal prosecutors get involved. People go to prison. I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm just asking you to be ready." "Ready for what?" "For when I light the flare." I hung up and opened a new document. For the next 4 hours, I wrote what would become the most precisely worded email I'd ever composed. No anger, no personal grievances, no emotion at all. Just facts laid out like evidence in a federal courtroom. Subject line, regulatory compliance inquiry. Officer authority documentation. Immediate review required. I addressed it to Diana Foster, our in-house legal counsel. Harvard Law, 12 years of automotive compliance work, the kind of lawyer who started hyperventilating at the first sign of regulatory violations. The email was exactly 3 paragraphs. Surgical, clinical,